Hello there guys, welcome to my second kind of tutorial. This is a tutorial on the Aerosoft Airbus. In particular this is the Airbus A319. We're on the ground here at Washington Dulles, Kilo India Alpha Delta, and we're going to do a relatively short flight. I believe it's only about an hour, up to JFK in New York. I don't believe this is a scheduled service at all. I don't know if US Airways fly this route or used to fly this route, depends on what time you're watching this. Obviously US Airways is just about to merge with American, but we're in a special livery for US Airways. And we're here, as I said, at Washington, FlightBeam Washington Dulles scenery, in prepared again, and hopefully we're going to set up a flight and head down to, up to JFK. Winds at the moment here aren't looking too great. We've got, well, they're not too bad to be honest. 350 at 7 knots, so we've got a nice headwind on takeoff. It's just not particularly warm here. Visibility is actually okay, but JFK is pretty bad weather, which is probably to be expected. Just grabbing the JFK weather, it's 320 at 11 knots, gusting 15. So as usual, pretty gusty at JFK, so we're going to head up there, do our best to get down at JFK. Looking at the winds at the moment, it's going to be 3-1 right for landing, and we'll have to find a gate that looks decent. So join me over in the flight deck, and we can go ahead and get ourselves started to set up for this flight to JFK. So here guys, welcome to the flight deck of the A319. Pretty standard to every other Airbus, especially the 320 series, pretty similar. So we're going to establish some power to this and hopefully get off the ground in the next sort of 15 or so minutes. It shouldn't take too long to set up. We have our route already with thanks to PFPX, and yeah, it's going to be okay hopefully. Just use easy dock to float to the first officer's seat. Right, first thing we can do is establish some ground power. Put the batteries on and the centre fuel pumps on. Put the nav and logo lights on so that the ground crew know that there is personnel in the flight deck, so they know that we're up here working. Smoking sign can go on. Emergency exit light can go on. And we can also just check all the lights, make sure there's no blown fuses or blown bulbs or anything. Just bring up the displays as well, just to make sure they're working. Just bring them all up. There we go. So everything's looking good, Just check our transponder as well, which should be fine. There shouldn't be a problem with it. No, it's all good. Good. So get rid of those. So while we're sitting here waiting, we can actually start the ADIRS to align. Start sequence is 1, 3. Wait for the on-back to go off, and then number 2. That's the actual start sequence for the real Airbuses. So we can do the engine fire tests. They're all good. And we can just check the gpws. I'll just turn everything off, all the flight director and everything, so there's no clutter for when we're setting it up. So we can go down, turn our radio panel on. If we were flying on VATSIM, we'd have a frequency, but as we're not flying on VATSIM, I'm just going to tune Unicom, set our radio to the one that we're going to be using. I'd always turn the brightness down on the CDUs, I always find them quite bright. Aircraft doors, we can just get the doors open so that the ground crew can be doing their thing, and now we can go down to the CDUs and go load and fuel. So we could be loading our fuel. Let me have a look at PFPX. What did it give us? It gave us 119 passengers. Quite empty. We've got a maximum of 156. Cargo, 3.8. These are all metric tons. And fuel, we have an endurance time of 1 hour 43 minutes, which equates to a release fuel of 3,705 kilograms. So there's our fuel in metric tons. We can click those, they start flashing green, show they're going to be boarding. Otherwise you can click instant. Click instant, I'll show you, they'll just all automatically go green. There we go. You see they bounce a little bit, shows that they've added everything, added the weight and the fuel and everything to the aircraft. We can just check up here, we'll wait for the fuel to be, we'll just actually wait for the fuel. Wait, what did the fuel point 3.7? Oh no, fuel's added. It just looked very low, but it's I keep forgetting it's a very short flight. Right, just check here. We've got the up-to-date ARAC. It's fine. It's fine for the flight. So we are going Kilo India Alpha Delta to Kilo Juliet Foxtrot Kilo. So 2 from/2. Insert those up there. Click back. We could have a company route, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to use company routes. If you're learning how to fly the Airbus, company routes aren't really your priority. I'm trying to learn how to put the routes in is probably the biggest hurdles for now. So Kilo India Whiskey Romeo Newark is our alternate. So put it in the scratch pad, click up here, put it into the right key. Align the IRS. We aligned the AD IRS above our heads about 2 minutes ago. So now we can align the IRS. Flight number, for the sake of this, we're not on VetSim or anything, so we'll go AWE 123. Cost index, we'll just use a 25 cost index. Cruise altitude, PFPX gave us flight level 350. Seems quite high, we'll see. If you right click now, block fuel. That is the amount of fuel we've got on board. We have 3.7 tons of fuel. So just put 3.7, block, populate all of these fields. There you go. So that's the initial phase of the flight setup. So if you now click on flight plan, this is where people seem to get confused. This is pretty simple once you get the hang of it. If you click up here under KIAD, click on departure. Now we are going off runway 1 right, and now I need to check the departures. Sorry guys, you just have to check the departure, which is a capital 8 departure. So we're going to go from manual, which is just vectors. We are going to Jerez, J-E-R-E-S. So in the scratch pad, you can insert it. From Jerez, we are actually entering the airway Juliet 211. So if you click on the fix you're going from, click Airways, Juliet 211. Let me just double check that was actually how it was. Yes, it is. And we are exiting that airway on EMI, Echo Mike India. Click 2. There you go. Next, we are going direct to SIE, so we can go ahead and insert that. There we go. And then we're going direct to, did I say SIE? I did, SIE, so SIE. Scratch pad, next waypoint, insert that in there. Right, so that's all good. So now you can see we've got discontinuity. We're going to just put our arrival in, so click JFK, click arrival, and we're going to be using the ILS 431 right. ILS 31 right. And it's going to be the Cameron 4. Have we got a transition? Let me have a look. Just bring up the charts. It's another graph loading in the charts, that ding you may have just heard. And Cameron 4. Do we have a transition? From Cameron? Is it Cameron? Cathode. Let me just triple check the charts. No transition. We're not going to be using a transition. So we'll just wait for it to finish populating to make sure we don't accidentally delete anything. And the way you get rid of these discontinuities, flight plan discontinuity or discos, click clear. Clear will appear down here, and then click up here. Click manual. And then click the discontinuities because the vectors, it doesn't understand. If you're going to be on vectors, how can you go direct from vectors to a fix? It doesn't understand. You're confusing the autopilot too much. So you just remove the vectors, and we'll go direct from fix to fix to fix. We're down here. This is a lot easier to explain. Click clear, and then we can remove that. And there we go. We'll go direct from Cameron to Maldi, and we'll decelerate in between. Go down here, end of flight plan. We're not going to worry about setting alternate routing for now. If you're trying to learn the Airbus, you're probably just trying to get off the ground, to be honest. So I'm not going to worry about alternate routes. If you're flying with no failures enabled, you're not going to have to divert, unless for weather. But if the weather's that bad, really, you shouldn't be setting off. Alright, go on the perf page, and this is where we set up our reference page for the departure. So right now, where it says flaps, we're going to be using flaps 1 and /up 1.0. That's the trim up 1.0. So go ahead and stick that in. Up 1.0, and our flex temp is going to be 62. Flex temp is to do with engine derates. If it's pretty much tricking the engine into thinking it's a warmer temp or colder temperature outside, and therefore it doesn't need to deliver as much power. Airlines don't always use, most airlines don't use full power on takeoff. As you can see, we'll probably use about 80% of our engine thrust on takeoff. We can look at it when we spool up the engines. You'll see where our APR rating is in comparison to the 100%. So that is pretty much this route set up. If we go on flight plan, just have another look down. There are no major discontinuities that we can see. Perf. Just check, we should arrive with 1.3 fuel on board. We've got winds in our favour as well, so we'll actually arrive with slightly more than 1.3. But for the sake of the video, that'll be fine. Not really advisable though for flying on that little amount of fuel if you have to do go arounds and that kind of stuff. But as we're flying offline, not going to be doing go arounds. We're going to have a headwind on the arrival, so we're not going to have a crosswind to deal with. So it's going to be nice. Just make sure we've got all of our frequencies set up. It automatically populates these VOR frequencies. And there we go, departure and our arrival. So we've got, we believe, let me just double check, it's 45 minutes airborne. The aircraft's given us slightly less, but everyone to themselves. Right, so as you can see, our IRSs have finally aligned. So we have now got our PFD and our ND, our primary flight display and a navigational display, as well as the captain has got his or her PFD and ND. So I'm going to just go ahead and set the MCP up, the mode control panel for the flight. We're going to have speed is going to be managed by the autopilot, so left click the heading, because the heading is going to be managed by the autopilot. And we're going to just set an initial altitude as 18,000 feet, which in the States is the transition altitude. We switch from what is barometric pressure, which is inches of mercury, to standard pressure, which is 1013 or 2992. So I'm just going to right click, select to 1,000 feet, and we're just going to scroll up to 180, and then left click in to leave it managed. So what you should see is dash dot, number dot. If for whichever reason you line up on the runway and the air traffic control gives you fly runway heading after departure, just pull the heading out, and as you can see, it will automatically fly that heading. Get GSX boarding, you can hear everybody getting on now. And that being said, we can now put the seatbelt sign on because we are fully fueled. And we can also start the APU. So, master, start the APU, and we'll also put the bleed on as well. So it's just another before we actually depart, just going to switch the VORs on. Put constraints on. If there are any constraints along the routing, we can see them, and the altimeter here is, if I can just find it, 3009. So if we just scroll up to it, we'll see 3009. And just to double check, the aerodrome elevation is, I think, 313 feet. So that's all good. We can, at the moment, we can set our auto brakes to max. So put max. There is no, if you're used to flying Boeings, there is no rejected takeoff mode in the Airbus. You have low, medium, and max. Max is the equivalent of RTO. The Airbus senses you're on the ground, or knows you're on the ground, and for whichever reason the brakes have to be engaged, it'll automatically engage RTO, which RTO is maximum braking anyway, but in the Airbus they sort of made it a bit simpler, you just use max. And you can't engage max to land, I don't believe. I have to check that, but I'm pretty sure you can't land on max auto brakes. You have to use medium as the max, if that makes sense. So we'll just go down here. We'll just set our squawk in. I don't know, 4635. That's going to be our squawk code for today. As most of you know, we change squawk codes throughout the flight, but for the sake of departure, that's our squawk code. Get the weather radar set up. So if I just actually float down to it, I'm not going to be able to float down to it. My GSX messes up my EasyDock. If I go to manual, I'll turn the gain up so you can actually see something. There's probably some weather. If I switch to 1, you should be able to see, yeah, there's the weather. That's on maximum gain though, the weather isn't actually that bad. If I turn it down until we can see the black, and then you'll start to see where there is actually some weather. Where is it? There we go. So we'll see specks of weather around. Nothing too bad, to be honest. So if we just terrain radar as well works in the 319. There you go. There's some terrain. There's actually some ridges around the airport. I noticed I flew in here and crossed the pond for the VATS event across the Atlantic. There was over 1,000 people taking part in that, I believe, and I flew in here. There's quite a lot of terrain around here. Nothing too hazardous, but it's still not the best terrain in the world to fly into. So we just got to pretty much wait for GSX to finish doing its thing, and then we can get on our way down or up to JFK. So I'll catch you guys when we're ready to push back. Right then guys, welcome back. We've just finished boarding. I've just requested our pushback. We can go ahead now and close the doors that we don't need, which is all of them. So aft left, front left, aft cargo, and front cargo can all get closed. If we can then go on ground services, just check our parking brake is set, which it now is, and we can remove everything. So we've got the APU running, remove the external power, wheel chocks, and the traffic cones can all go away. So, same story as with the NGX. If you haven't checked the NGX out, the video, then I recommend going and watching that. Beacon, which is the anti-collision light, which if I pop to the outside is the light on the top, and the bottom which shows ground crews not to approach the aircraft because it is ready to be started. Thankfully I did go to the outside view because I just realised we've still got the gate attached, so get rid of that.
Departure check completed. Live has been inserted. Release parking brakes.
Just give it a second to get the gate clear and then we'll get pushed back. We are going to be going tail left, so we are going to be turning that way, so we're going to be facing that way towards the tower, and we're going to taxi down there, turn right, as you can see on here, turn right, go to the end, and then depart to the north, or northerly direction. So before he tells us again, we can start the clock, and we can release the parking brakes.
Release parking commencing push. All engines clear. Start that wheel.
Just turn the terrain radar off, I don't know why I turn it back on. So we'll just give it a second until we are clear of all of this ground equipment. Don't want to be ingesting a luggage car into the engines, which is probably bad news for everybody involved. Undoubtedly when we cross this road we'll probably get crashed into by something, it always tends to happen. See if there's anything coming. Oh, no, if we can hit us. Oh, here we go, see if they hit us. Chances are they will. I'll be surprised if they don't. It is going to hit us. There we go. The wonders of FSX, or flight sim, sorry. Anyway, let's get started. So, starting the engines are a bit different to something like the NGX, where up here you've got the start switches. You just turn the start switch to ignition, and then just fuel cut off, engine 1 to on. can watch the temperatures and the pressures rise. And then one's rising, PSI is rising as well. That's what I was talking about. We're going to get crashed into, nearly got crashed into by one of those things. The passenger transport things. So you can see and hear, hopefully you can hear the engine spooling up. Hopefully I haven't turned you down that much. I did turn you down because a few people were saying I was very quiet in the NGX tutorial. So I've tried to rectify that. So in a second he's pushed us onto the line, he'll tell us to set the parking brake. So good start on engine 1, start on engine 2. Parking brake is set. Fuel pumps come on. Something that isn't modelled entirely accurately on the Airbus is the fuel system. Just had the fuel pumps off, but it had no effect on the aircraft. So we've got about 5 or so minute taxi down to 1 right, and then I'll probably cut the video and we'll do part 2 as a departure and climb out. Apparently left and right clear. They should be clear, there shouldn't be anything around us. He's just waved at us, if you saw him down there, but that's all good. Good start on engine 2, so we can return the start ignition switch to normal. So now that that's started, we've got power from the engines, we can turn the APU master off, the start switch goes off, and the APU bleed can now come off as well. And now we can arm the speed brakes for departure, so arm speed brakes. Reset any rudder trim we might have, and then set flaps to 1. Now I'm pretty sure here at Washington you have to escort mode Charlie, which is the full TCAS on mode. So we're given our aircraft position, speeds, all that kind of information when we're on the ground for the controllers. So for the sake of this video, not needed at the moment because obviously we're offline, I'm going to escort Charlie because chances are if you're flying out of here on VATSIM, you are going to have to. So anyway, we are clear on the left, clear on the right, ground equipment, just make sure he's gone, is it? Yeah, he's gone, he's parked back up. Alright, so taxi light can come on. We can now start our taxi out to the runway. So the Airbus is very easy to taxi. They've removed the ground friction bug that FSX tended to have when you tried moving the aircraft on P3D. They've removed it. So we'll just do the TO config, just check the brakes. Good. Very sudden brake check. I was holding control and accidentally set the parking brake, that's why. My push to talk is control. Anyway, flight control check. Full left. If I can see the camera in the correct place. Full left. Full right. Full up. Full down. Neutral. We'll just disconnect the nose wheel steering. So full right rudder. Checked. Full left rudder is checked. And we'll just reconnect it. We'll actually get back on the taxiway centre line, my dodgy taxiing skills. Rudder's very sensitive on P3D, I've noticed. The brakes seem very jerky, they are very jerky. It's my the way my sim is set up, they're buttons rather than pressures. The top of rudder pedals or anything, they are two individual buttons for differential brakes, which makes it very, very harsh on the brakes. Now just before we get to the end of the taxiway, I want to actually look at the chart to make sure we go the right way and don't get lost. It's surprisingly easy to get lost here. I think there's only 3 runways but parallel to each other. It's not that hard. It is kind of difficult. So I'm going to take the second right up here. I thought it was the second right, I just wanted to double check as well. Let's have a look at the aircraft. Very good scenery. I like the scenery here for Washington. It's FlightBeam, as I said earlier, it's the FlightBeam. I think it's HD textures. I'm pretty sure it is. So there's a high-speed exit for one right. And now we're going to take this taxiway all the way to the other end, so it's not too bad of a taxi. It was just one turn and then we're at the other end, but it's quite a distance, and we'll probably get up to about 25 knots on the taxiway. I know it's a straight, so we'll probably try and hit about 25, get down there quicker. Normal speed limit is 20. I believe it's 20. It is in a lot of Europe, so we'll try and push it here in the States. Thing is, when I was saying this aircraft is very easy to... I keep using my push to talk and pressing the brake pedals. So it engages the parking brake. It is very easy to taxi this aircraft. My throttles are completely idle on my desk, so it's extremely easy to taxi the aircraft. You can see it's building speed, and I'm not even having to add power. So it's a very good aircraft to taxi, except you have to keep pressing the brakes, so don't link your push to talk to a control key, which I've done. Like a noob. So I just gotta make sure I don't brake and talk at the same time. Unless the passengers are wanting a shock. If you see the sim flashing, like then you just see it flashing, they're flashing, they're flashing. It's the HDR. When you record P3D it flashes, and with EasyDock it flashes, so... Bit of a nuisance, but there's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. It's just the way P3D is. I think it makes up for it aesthetically, though. .30 knots. Just get that speed back under control. It's so tempting to go fast on the straights. When I say the straights, the straight parts of the taxiways. So we can actually put our flight directors on now. There's no need for those to be off anymore. I always turn them off to align the IRS. Just something I just tend to do. I don't know if it's procedural or what, but I just do it anyway. So it's 28 knots. So the minimum amount of fuel we're allowed to take off with is 3,500 kilograms. We've got 3,580, so we're fine at the moment. As long as we don't sit at the hold for ages on end. So we're going to take this intersection departure off to our left, which is Kilo 2, is it? Kilo 3. So get the aircraft slowed down before turning to about 10 knots. So there we are holding at runway 1 right, and we are ready to go. So we can go up here, flick our lights on, lights can come on, strobes can come on, turn off lights can come on, ding the cabin with a smoking sign, and we're going to be having packs off for departure. That's the air conditioning systems are off for the departure. We're just going to go ahead and set the trim, make sure we are 1 up, which we are, and that is us ready to line up. So let's go ahead and line up. So we'll actually come to a full stop when we line up, and then we'll sort out the departure. So running a little bit of brake and then turning into the centre line. Overshot that, but it's fine, we've got tons of runway. Anyway, we are ready. So for the departure, we're going to be using a flex temperature because we use our flex of 62, and we're using flaps 1, and we're going to add forward pressure to the nose as we roll. So here we go. Set 50%, starting the clock, pitching the nose down a little bit because the Airbus has a tendency to pitch up on the adding power. Thrust is stable, flex 62, SRS runway. So we'll keep this nose down pressure to about 80 knots, we'll release it at about 100, and then we'll continue our takeoff roll. At 100 knots. Just trying to keep it on centre line B1. Rotate. So gently pitching aircraft up. Positive climb, gear come up. So we're going to reduce the power back to climb thrust. And follow the flight directors. Passing the flaps speed, flaps come up. And we can engage the autopilot. Packs come back on. And disarm the speed brake. So there's not actually a whole lot we can do at the moment. So 10,000 feet, lights off. So you've got to sign off, the aircraft increases speed.